Hello and welcome. This is the video on the final research argument paper, which is going to be 200 points. The due date for you is listed on the actual assignment on Blackboard. So please have a look if you haven't already and see when the due date is. So on this research paper, you're going to create an original piece for this class. So you can't copy and paste any other information that you've used in the class at all. This has to be newly written. And you can reuse sources though. So any of the sources that you have had this semester that apply to your topic, you can use. So please keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons you complete an annotated bibliography in this class. And so that should help you in terms of getting your sources into your paper, because you should already have those done if you did the annotated bibliography. So there's also some supportive links and videos that'll be available to you for the assignment as well. Also, you have already done a proposal, so I should have already gotten that. If you have not approved your topic, or you have not read my comments on your topic, that could cause a problem for you because I have to approve those topics. So I've worked with a couple students this semester to get them squared away on what they need to be using for theirs. I don't mind working with people either via phone or in my office on campus, but you have to let me know that you need help, and you have to do it early enough where we have time to do it. So please, if you're struggling, go ahead and set up a time to see me. So here you go. The paper's argumentative. It's not informational. It's not something to just educate people. You're actually making an argument for something. You have to have 6 to 10 sources on this. That's why you did 10 on your bibliography, because you may not use all those. You may find that some of those aren't helpful once you really start getting into those really, pretty far. You at least 3 of your sources, and it was originally 4, but I know that some people struggle with finding 4 on the database we have. So make sure that you're looking on Google as well to find those. You can look on Google Scholar or just Google, and if you add in an extension .pdf, sometimes you can pull those up if you put in your topic and kind of look to see, has the article been cited? That's actually on the search page on Google. It'll be cited and have a number. That's usually a clue that you've got a peer-reviewed journal article, but not always. So it's just kind of a hint. You are welcome to contact the librarian for help. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend them. They're very good at what they do. And if you're not on campus, they will work with you via email, and they're very good at that as well. So the next part of this is that your paper must be a minimum of 7 full pages of text. Now, it's 7 minimum and 9 maximum. You cannot go over the 9th page. And most of you probably won't make it to the 9th page. So, but you cannot exceed that, because I will take off the same points for exceeding that as I do if it's too short. The point is to be concise. Now, something you'll want to note here is this part. Your text on the 7 full pages does not include the cover page, the references page, the tables, charts, headings, or header information. It does not include anything except that text that has your research in it. Because of the writing requirements, we can't include a cover page as written word, because it's not. It's just a cover page. And references are just references for what you wrote. And so I don't require tables and charts, and people can't use those to sort of make their papers longer. Headings and header information. So headings are like those level 1 headers that you might find in a paper to separate it. Now, I suggest you use those, and so does APA, but they do not count in your word count. So, once you do your word count, you'll want to make sure that you didn't count those. It also doesn't include abstracts or author's notes. Those aren't required in this course, and so they are not counted. 20 points per page of missing text will be applied to any paper that's not the right length. Now, the way that I do that is I download your paper, and I make sure that you've got it double spaced correctly. I make sure that it's 12 font Times New Roman. So if you upload that and it's in 13 or 14 font and you had 7 pages, when I correct that, it will be graded based on the correction. So hopefully you all already know it's Times New Roman 12. It's double spaced. You make sure there's no extra spacing in there, and the way to do that is go up here, select your text, and just if this says remove space before paragraph, remove space after, you'll hit remove. So this is correct when it says add. That means there's no extra default spaces added in there. So any paper that once it's formatted correctly that is not 4 full pages to the end of the last line, last space is an automatic 0. You have to prove that you can research, think critically, and write in this class to pass it. And so I cannot, in good conscience, allow you to get a grade on a paper that doesn't even meet just minimal research. So please be mindful of that as you start writing. Now, it has to be 7 pages long, and there's the 20 points per page of missing text. So if you had 5 pages, 40 points would be taken off before it's ever graded. So that can really hurt you. And truly, I do take off. If you're not to the last line, last space of that page, there's no way for me to make a judgment call on things and be fair to everybody. So you have to make it to that last line, last space. While it's formatted correctly. So if I can hit the space bar or I can hit enter and it hasn't gone to the next page, that will be an automatic 20. So make sure you hit the 7 mark. As you go down here, this paper should be written in academic language, but it should be understandable to anyone. So you have to make sure that you define terms that someone might need and that you're very clear on some background information if it's needed. Now you'll see in the rubric that the introduction cannot be longer than 2 paragraphs. And generally a paragraph has to be at least 5 sentences in this class to qualify. 5 well-developed sentences, not choppy pieces just to make a paragraph. Generally you want a paragraph to be, somewhere between 5 and 10. So you can go a little over 10, but you shouldn't have an introduction that's an entire page long. You want to introduce your topic concisely, give whatever background they need, and really it shouldn't go over that. So because then you're having a whole page in a research paper that's only introduction, and it really shouldn't be. So there are many ways to develop an argument. Regardless of how you organize your paper, you want to make sure that your introduction has to introduce your readers to the topic, tell why it's significant, why is it important, and share the thesis statement that you're going to argue, that you're going to use in your argument. Now, your thesis statement should be 1 sentence, a real sentence, not a run-on sentence or anything like that. And it should be underlined in this case because sometimes students have a problem, not all, but some students have a problem identifying their own thesis statement. And that is a significant oversight when you don't write it correctly and include the right points, because your entire paper should be organized as your thesis is set up. So the same way that your thesis is set up is the way that you organize that. Now it should include a counter argument, a position on the topic, and at least 3 points to support that position on the topic. You have to analyze the 3 to 5 major points. So here's what this means. You have to have 3 minimum points that you're discussing and no more than 5. So you really want to develop that research inside of your paper. When you choose your topic, which you should have already done, and if you haven't, again, you need to contact me immediately. Also make sure that you've read my comments on your chosen topic, on your proposal, to make sure that you're not just going on with business and doing research on something that I told you couldn't do research on. So take a few minutes to write down what you want to prove and discuss before you get started. Do that brainstorming piece because that will definitely help you. Then as you're going in here, you have to synthesize. That just means pull the ideas together into a cohesive research piece. And you've already done synthesis in this class, so I think most of you have a pretty good grasp on that. It means that when you use a source, it's clearly used in your text. Now I want to caution you here. I don't allow students to write titles over and over for their in their papers. That is not appropriate documentation. That's just filling up space and not putting your research in, but putting in title after title after title. And that's not how this one will work. On this one, you will say things like this, and I'll give you a few more examples at the bottom. You'll use the last name, which is appropriate etiquette for this, of the author and the date. Now, if an organization wrote it, like NAFTA or something like that, then you would use, after you define NAFTA, which would be, you'd write out the whole meaning of it, and in parentheses the acronym, you would use NAFTA the rest of the way. So if it's an organization like a government organization that's abbreviated later, you'll repeat it in its abbreviated format. Now, otherwise, you're going to use in-text citations. You won't always use the author's last name. You'll use, in the conversation, you'll use in-text citations. And I do have examples. So you must present a solution, a call to action, or make a recommendation. And I want you to think in terms of, if you were to ask me to go out and start the process of addressing the problem that you've brought up, what would be some things that you'd ask me to do? So would it be to go and start a petition and take it around a certain area of Kentucky to get signatures to change a law? So think in terms of something that you might not follow through on, but something that you could tell someone, this is where we get started. As we go on down here, lastly, you have to make sure that you're practicing good grammar. Please run your grammar and spelling check and read it out loud. That will help you as well. Don't forget that you have to have the 3 types of sources, 3 different types. And I give you an example here of what that means. So please read that. Even though you have to have 3 peer-reviewed journals, remember you have to have 6 total minimum sources. So you'll have 3 peer-reviewed journals and maybe a YouTube thing by a professional, and then maybe an online newspaper and another online newspaper. So that does qualify as 3 different ones. As you keep working your way down there, it says, you may not reuse something that you wrote inside or outside of this class. It's just a reminder. All sources must be available to me. You must have a references page. A references page is proof that you did research. I cannot even give you a grade if there's not a references page, but you also have to make these available to me. And the standard deduction just for not having one of the sources is 30 points. So please note that. That is a real thing. I have to have access to those, because I do spot check those and make sure that research is done with integrity, because we have to. That's how we get our accreditation at the college, is upholding the course objectives, and this is one of the ways that we do that. Know that if you turn your paper in, I cannot tell that you actually did the work on time. Therefore, the late penalty of 10% per day until it's a 0 will apply. So make sure that your paper is uploaded in Word format, and also that if you have any documents that you need to attach, because the links are maybe not good ideas, like peer-reviewed journal articles, then make sure that you upload those. Don't get the links, add the links to it. Things to avoid: don't use don't. Conversational language uses contractions like can't and won't, and those are not really appropriate for academia when you're doing very formalized research. So leave those out. And here I gave you some examples to help you not repeat titles, because I'll count that off in the grammar section, but sometimes in the content section if it's extensive. So you don't want to miss points doing something like that. So here you can see an example where I've paraphrased something and mentioned the author's name. Here's something, a quote, and I mentioned the author's name, so it shows you how that rhythm of that citation goes. And then this tells you that para, you use para period in place of page. So if this were online and I were counting down a web page, I would literally count paragraphs, even if the paragraph is 2 sentences and then has a space after it. So that would be counted as a paragraph. So I'd count 1, 2, and that would be para period 2 if that's where this had come from. Here's another example, a paraphrase without mentioning the name. Now all of this is in APA information on OWL, but I wanted to give you some some helpful examples of how that's done. And then here, and notice the periods are afterward too. So here's a quote without mentioning the name, and then a paraphrase without mentioning the name. So I hope that you find this helpful. The guidelines, the rubric will be in line with this, but this writing prompt, the information in here does count. And I do apply things that are in here to your rubric grade. So it has truly been a joy teaching you guys. I hope that one day I get to meet each and every one of you as I've gotten to meet some of the students in the class. So please contact me if you have any questions, and I will gladly answer those. Have a wonderful day.